Hello, welcome. I read a book. Are you ready to talk about it? Because I need to talk about it. The title of the book is In the Doghouse by V.M. Burns. It is a dog club mystery. However, there is no dog club in this book, so don't know what's up with that. In the opening scene, we're witnessing
divorce
between the main character Lily and her husband Albert. In the room with them, they of course have their two lawyers, one of which is their daughter, a lawyer who is representing her mother. In addition to this little merry band of people, there's also the quote-unquote 20-year-old home-wrecking hussy with bleach blonde hair and is a heavily made-up twig. But this girl's actual name? It's Bambi. There's excitement in the office, and Lily, she tries to choke Bambi with her bare hands, and in her rage, at about 4 pages in, our main character really loses her shit when she yells the harshest word she was capable of, which was, apparently, Razzafraz and Fragdaggle Blasted Tater Sauce. Is anyone else uncomfortable with that? Secondhand embarrassment. Are we cringing collectively? I'm cringing. Are you cringing? Are we doing it together? At the same time. 3, 2, 1. So it's established in the meeting that the husband wants to take all of their assets and leave our leading lady, Lily, with nothing. Nada. It's enough to make anyone bitter, if you ask me. After the meeting concludes, excitement dies down. Lily, she takes a train back to her hometown of Lighthouse Dunes and has a rather transformative conversation with a stranger on the train who convinces her to let go of the marriage and start a new life wherever she may please. It is as a result of this conversation that Lily reaches out to her college BFF and inquires about moving to Chattanooga, Tennessee. The friend, Dixie is her name. She's an old friend. The two drifted apart years ago when Lily had kids, which is kind of confusing because when Dixie comes to town to visit Lily, her kids call her Aunt Dixie immediately. Am I the only one that hates when authors forge instant bonds between characters? Like there's no effort put in. This southern woman with 3 poodles and hair as big as Dolly Parton shows up on your doorstep, and 30 seconds in, she's good old Aunt Dixie. Has the title been earned? Not so sure. Well, anyways, Dixie shows up because it turns out she was in the area doing a dog show, which is kind of what drew me to the book in the first place. The dog on the cover, the title, it just seemed too good to pass up. The dogs play a weird role in the story, in my opinion. Dixie has 2 big-ass poodles and one small toy poodle that she gives to Lily. And throughout the story, the dogs are constantly mentioned, but I'm not entirely sure why. Like, I get it. They're really, really important to Dixie, so she's obsessed with the dogs, but it's like every time they meet someone new, they talk about the dogs. When Lily and Dixie reunite, there is justifiably a long explanation of what event she shows her dogs in. Also, how dog shows work, why they have foil wrapped around their fur, how she came to own the smallest poodle, distinctions between different types of poodles, why she named the biggest ones Champion China, the 9th wonder of the world, and Champion Galactic Imperial Resistance leader Leia. Yeah, we get to know all of that, all of these little deets. Then, suddenly, Albert the adulterer shows up at the house. Dixie nearly sicks the dogs on him, and the author really talks up their menace, but ultimately Albert and Lily have a strained conversation where he convinces her to host his great-grandmother's birthday party. And Lily's like, no, fuck that. And Albert's like, just do it! And then Lily goes, make the kids your beneficiary in your will or no birthday cake for Granny. Oh yeah, and then Alberto reveals he hasn't told his family that he left his wife 6 months ago for little Miss Bambi, and is filed for divorce. So, of course, Albert's like,
it's a secret. Please keep it for now until I decide to tell them.
And Lily's like, ugh, whatever, hate you. Which makes very little sense to me because Albert brings Bambi to the fucking party. What was the point of convincing her to play happy marriage when he brought the mistress to his grandmama's birthday party? So, at the party, she sees Bambi. Lily flies off the handle a bit. Not the best look for her. So Lily and Albert, they're standing in the room. They're fighting like cats and dogs, and she starts throwing shit. The whole family is listening to the tea from downstairs, and she almost hits him in the head with something. But Albert, wicked reflexes, right? Super fast. He dodges the blow and says, "You're crazy. You could have killed me." To which Lily replies, You're right. I am crazy. And guess what? That night, Albert fucking dies. And so begins the meta mystery. Immediately, right off the bat, the cops are suspicious of Lily. And it made sense. To recap, she has choked out the mistress, threw things at Albert's head, called herself crazy, and has the audacity to laugh out loud, straight up LOL, when the cops tell her that Albert was shot. When Lily and family inquire about how he died, the cops reveal that it was an attempted robbery gone awry. So one of the popo asks, "Did you know anyone who wanted to see her husband dead?" And Lily, the wild card that she is, says, "You mean other than me?" So after this ordeal, Lily calls her son, who happens to be an actor, and relays the news. The actor bit isn't really that important, but they mention it a lot in the story, so I'm going to tell you. Albert must have been one son of a, because no one in his immediate family is crying. His kids are just like, and Lily's like. Eventually, Dixie and Lily move on to dinner, and Dixie, of course, starts talking about her dogs again. Paragraphs are spent talking about dog shows. They even mention this video of like a dog dancing in a show. Wait, let me look it up. Maybe it's... Oh my god, it's real. Wait, this is actually pretty cool. Damn, that dog looks hungry. How do you get something so reliant on treats that it'll do this for it? I dig the energy here. The dog walks backwards, the crowd goes fucking wild. Okay, time to move it along. The author, V.M. Burns, drops little hints throughout the story, little tidbits of information, literary treats, if you will, so the reader might follow the trail and make guesses about who done it. It is a murder mystery after all, right? So the first one we get, other than Lily's psycho streak, occurs in a little powwow between mother and daughter. Stephanie ominously inquires, "Doesn't it seem odd that Charles Nelson is now Dad's attorney?" Lily goes, "I guess. When your dad expanded his business to include imports, Chip started working at the dealership. Maybe he convinced his dad to represent your father. I know Charles went through some difficult times for a while. Gossip around town said he had financial problems. He nearly lost everything a while back. But then he was okay again. And back at the yacht club, and country club, and flying around the world." Lily clarifies that this occurred about a year ago. Rather sus, but we'll tuck that little nugget of knowledge away for now. So, as we just established, Albert is a businessman. He owns a used car dealership that Lily, Stephanie, and Dixie decide to go visit because, well, now the owner's dead. And guess what they find when they enter his office? Bambi! Stealing cold, hard cash. They call the cops, and the same guy who told Lily about her husband's murder shows up. He's on the case. He tells her that Bambi is a prostitute on parole, so if she presses charges, she'll really get it. But Lily, bless her heart, lets Bambi go. With the money and a car. Tell me why. I don't know why. Now, Lily is faced with a decision. Keep the dealership open or closed for the time being. She decides to keep it open, seeing as how the employees rely on the income. All, including Albert's brother Vinny, who Lily described as hardworking and quiet, and wonders about what happened between the two brothers. Something no bueno, apparently. So the officer and Lily and co. get to talking, and it turns out he has a police dog that rolls with him. Of course. Right. So more dialogue ensues about the breed, and Dixie lights up like a little firework. Pages, and I do mean pages, go by describing the particulars of the breed, which is Plothound, in case you were wondering. I'm sure you were dying to know. Later in the book, in an effort to grieve and she's also in a panic over the cops' rising suspicions of her, Lily ends up drinking and driving. The queen of making rational decisions gets pulled over. And I can't not talk about it because there's like 10 nicknames that she gives the cop. It's ridiculous. She calls him a just the facts ma'am patrolman, Officer Stonyface, a super sensitive bloodhound-nosed policeman, Officer Go Ahead and Make My Day, Officer Granite Jaw, Officer Quick Draw McGraw, Officer Lock 'em Up, Officer Get Out of the Car, Officer I Feel Tough with my posse backing me up, and Officer Keep my cards close to my chest. What the fuck even was with any of that? Was it supposed to be witty? Creative? I just don't understand why the character couldn't read the name on the badge. Say that instead. Why? For what purpose? There are just so many little sayings in this book that frankly do not tickle my fancy. Like how when Lily initially notices that she's getting pulled over, she exclaims, direct quoting here, "Gobble darn blast dab nab bit." It's just a lot, you know? Maybe I'm alone in this, but a whole ass book full of this shit is just too much. Too much! So days pass. The cops decide to arrest her for the murder of Albert, so Lily gets out on bail, and her, Dixie, and her kids decide that they need to solve this murder for themselves. Because the cops aren't doing shit. As an avid mystery novel reader, Lily hatches a plan to uncover the murderer. She sends her son to the strip club that Bambi works at. Twice. And he's excited about the task. Kind of in a weird way, you know? You know what I'm saying? Do I have to say it? It's in a weird way, a little bit. Dixie and Stephanie go around town questioning people, and Lily decides to comb through the financial books for Albert's business. This is where the story takes a turn. We're about 70% into the book, and finally things get juicy. She finds that, for some unknown reason, $3 million had been paid to one mystery vendor, M.N. Holdings. Lily's son, his name is David. Through his sleuthing, we learn that Chip Nelson, a dude who works at the dealership and is a recovered addict, has been handling the books at Albert's business. And Chip Nelson? He's the son of Albert's lawyer, Charles Nelson. And get this! Chip and Bambi have been getting their bow chicka bow wow on. So no one is convinced that Chip, who apparently isn't the brightest bulb in the box, could ever be the mastermind behind whatever illegal business had him funneling millions of dollars. And with the clock ticking on Lily's impending jail sentence, she, Dixie, David, the son, and those 3 fucking poodles decide to stake out the car dealership until the wee hours of the night. So let's just take a second and look at our options here. Prime suspects. We have Bambi, mistress and thief. Chip Nelson, the bad accountant. Vinny, Albert's quiet brother who Lily mentions for literally 1 sentence, has mystery beef with his brother. And the poodles, China and Leia. Because no one is safe in a murder mystery, and these fools are sus. Calling it right now. Big time sus. When suddenly, a light turns on and the crew decide to go investigate. They see that Chip Nelson is taking off the tires of various cars within the garage on site. While they're creeping around, Dixie brings along the dogs, including the toy poodle, for backup. But surprise, surprise, someone gets the jump on them. Little Miss Bambi grabs Lily and puts a gun to her head. She's like, "Get the small pooch away from me," and kicks the thing all the way to Dixie. This sparks a fire in Lily, who uses a self-defense method she learned to disarm Bambi. Miraculously, Bambi is incapacitated, and the cops arrive to arrest both Chip and Bambi. Luckily, the little dog is fine, a little banged up, but she's okay. So, case seems closed, right? Wrong! You're wrong. The cop discovered that Chip had been removing tires from those cars because drugs were being smuggled inside of them. Remember when Lily said that Chip was incapable of masterminding the operation? Well, turns out she was right. Upon seeing Chip's dad, who was also Albert's lawyer, Charles Nelson, wearing a fancy suit and watch, Lily determines that the only way he could afford such luxuries was by being a part of the drug smuggling as well. As it turns out, Mr. Charles Nelson had been helping his son with the drugs and money, and this was how he had turned his financial hardship around a year prior. And yet, in the end, the reason that Albert was shot that night of the burglary gone wrong was because he had walked in on Chip and Bambi doing the nasty, and for some reason they thought a reasonable reaction to that would be to shoot him. A very rational type of people, these folk. And that's the story. Why the dogs were made such a prominent part of the story, the world may never know. But I'm glad we talked about this, that I could get it off my chest. Thank you for listening. Please leave a comment down below, subscribe, let me know how you feel about this video, about this story, read it for yourself, I'd love to talk about it, or you could not read it for yourself because it's not that great, to be honest, but maybe you'll get a kick out of it. Let me know in the comments below.